Hi, this is Laura Live, and today we're going to talk about moving forward with a high-functioning person on the spectrum who's teenagers or adults. And I'm specifically going to talk about my eldest son, Nicholas Caspar, which a lot of people who are on Gen I have had communication with through his page, and kind of what we did with him or what he did for himself. So Nicholas was a super nerd, a super geek, super into all the things that super nerds like. He loved sci-fi and Tolkien and science, and he has terrible eye contact, and sometimes he took a long time to respond when we asked him something, and social skills were kind of non-existent. We had issues in school starting in second grade, and we had pulled him out of school in third grade because of the social situation. He wasn't diagnosed with Aspergers until his younger twin brother and sister were diagnosed with autism, and then we started reading and realized, oh, this is Asperger's. We never even considered. He has dyslexia. But we taught him to read so young. I taught him to read when he was only 3 years old. So with all that early therapy that I didn't even know he needed yet, turned out to really kind of fix the dyslexia, and we found it and come out in other ways. But so he went to college when he was 16, and he had a hard time with socialization in college. He lived at home. And after college, he was still had so much social anxiety that he couldn't even make a phone call to find out when the store operating hours were. He'd ask me to do it. This is a guy who's at college. So he went and got a job at a call center for AT&T. And they took 3 months, and they pretty much made training for people on the spectrum. I met the people who worked with all of them that I could tell were on the spectrum, even though they were undiagnosed. And this training was step by step on how to take calls and how to talk on the phone if you're on the spectrum. And it was absolutely life-changing. He went from not being able to make a phone call to be able to talk to anytime, anywhere about anything, and would make jokes on the phone, all the anxiety gone. He worked there for a few months, became sort of like a supervisor or something even, and he said, you know what, okay, I've conquered that issue, and then the next thing I have a problem with is speaking to people in real life, in person. So let's first talk about this on the phone thing. You can listen to your Aspie teen on the phone and hear and see if they sound unnatural. It's almost sound like they're reading a script when they're talking to people on the phone. Does it sound like there's nobody on the other line, or they're practicing talking when there's actually is somebody on the line? Do they avoid it? Do they send the phone? Could you make a call? That's nervousness. That's anxiety. These call centers around the country have phenomenal training that's like therapy. And if you can have your child go and apply for a job there, these people tend to be very good employees, and the skills that you will get will help you, just unbelievably help you. And just get over the fear and get over the anxiety, because you're calling new people, you're talking to a new person every single minute, and it's life and night and day after you've gone through this training and had this job for a while. The second thing, though, is Nicholas came to me and said, okay, I got over the fear of talking on the phone, but I still have a hard time talking in person, real life. So he got a job selling internet Comcast door to door. It was the most anxiety-provoking thing you could possibly do, is selling something door to door. But he was forced to knock on a door and come face to face with a new person every few minutes. And talk about trial by fire. He went around as a training for the first 3 days with someone, and he literally was so nervous he couldn't even raise his arm up to knock. All he had to do was knock. He couldn't even do that. The guy who was training him said, Nicholas, if you do not knock on this next door, you're fired. So he had to knock. By doing this, he became a manager in this too. He sold more than anybody else, and he completely overcame his fear of talking to strangers. And the next thing he was doing was he had a fear of a lot of anxiety talking to girls. And so he took ballroom dancing lessons. And I've been a dancer my whole life. I was in ballet company when I was little and did ballroom dancing. And when I first saw him dance, I thought, oh no, no natural talent, no natural ability. Just forget about it, because I didn't think you could actually teach it, grace. I thought you were born with it or you weren't. He worked at it, he worked at it, he worked at it, and now he is a fabulous, phenomenal dancer. In fact, there's a video on Gemini on the humor section of Nicholas and I dancing salsa together. He is the best dancer I ever danced with. He's an amazing dancer because he worked at it. And so now he's the most popular guy in any room he goes to. Everybody's Nicholas, because they want him to dance with them. So literally, I think you could write a book about this young man. He now is the COO of Gemini and runs one of the most socially impactful companies in the world. And he handles all of the interior, all the departments, everything. And he has to talk to new people, old people, adult people all the time, all day long. And he would never, ever, ever be able to do this job if he hadn't had that training that he initiated. I didn't come up with the idea. I would never have said that. Are you kidding me? I'm the mom. I said, don't do that. I'm trying to save him. He poured himself into those two very difficult situations, and he's the one who did it. So what I would suggest, if you have someone this high functioning, see if there's a call center in your area, get them, see if they can get a job there. And then once they're confident on the phone, see if you can do some retail where you're just talking to new people all the time just to get over the anxiety. The worst thing they can do is just stay home and avoid people. You really need to get out. The other thing that's good that Max is doing is going to meetup groups. There's a meetup website for people who are English language learners. The thing is, you get these meetup groups, everybody's trying to get together to have be able to speak English, to learn to speak English. And they don't have any native speakers, so they're just kind of practicing with each other, and that doesn't work so well. So if you're a native speaker, you can go and help these people out by meeting with them and just talking English. And they're so willing to talk to you. They're dying to talk to you. They're very, very friendly and very nice. So that's a good thing. Also, Max studies French and Spanish, so we can do meetups in French instead for people trying to learn to speak Spanish or learn to speak French. So those are my tips for the day for our high-functioning people on the spectrum who are a little bit older. I know we talk about little kids all the time, and sometimes, our population is getting older and older, and there's more of them all the time. We have to really have very good strategies to how to incorporate people with differences into our world. All right. I'm signing off. Don't forget to subscribe and to share with anybody who has an older person on the spectrum, and we'll see you on Monday.